We got a special episode today. Special for a lot of reasons. My first reason, the best reason, is that's my favorite day of the week. Third Party Thursday. So you best believe there's a third party waiting in the wings to talk New York Jets, Baltimore Raven football in this battle that we got. Flock versus Jets. Come on now. But as you can see, my guy, he might be at Terminal C right now. Let's see. Come on. My man is mid-traveling. I mean, you look at the time right now, it's a little bit later than 3. We all have to be flexible to put this show together, but you best believe, better late than never, we about to have a grand old time. As my man, don't get air sick in the plane now. Come on now. We are live. It is Boy Green meets Wudi.
Can you guys help us get a jet chant here? Yeah, going.
Oh.
Okay, right, yeah. Come on in.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go!
J-E-T-S, Jet, Jet, Jet! Let's go! J-E-T-S, Jet, Jet, Jet! Let's go! There you go!
Third Party Thursday.
Chris joining us here on the program with a capital P here on the program.
Jake Asman, come on down. How you doing, good sir?
Wow, what an intro. I mean, Boy Green is known for having the intro, but Wudi, that was unreal, man. Thanks for the kind words, son.
We are men of many names.
My favorite Austrian Jets fan right there,
Okay.
baby. Boy Green.
Meets Wudi. Welcome to another episode of Boy Green Meets Wudi. It is your boy James Wudi, and you already know we are Wudi, rocking everywhere. Yes, sir, with the Millie Rock. All right, this man, he is in the airport. Okay, TSA, they roughed him up, and still he has made it onto this show. It is all good. We talking about the boy who became king, Mr. Paul Esden Jr., hardest working man in the biz, doing this show live from the airport. And like I said, it's Third Party Thursday. Okay, we got the Ravens, we got the Jets. So we need somebody who's locked into what's going on with the Ravens camp. And who better to talk about who's locked in than the host of Locked On Ravens? We talking about Locked On NFL Pass. We talking about the man who is writing for the Ravens Wire, none other than Kevin Oestreicher. Come on down. How you doing? Welcome to the show.
Man, I appreciate you guys. I remember doing this years ago with Boy Green, and I'll tell you, his intro was great. Wudi, you're up there, man. I'll tell you, I loved it. Thank you for the intro, and I'm glad to be here. Glad these two teams are. It's been a while since these two teams have played action. I guess that the Ravens and Jets, whenever they play, the Jets like to just throw former Ravens quarterbacks at them. Last time it was Joe Flacco. This time it's Tyrod Taylor. I don't know who's going to be next. Hopefully not Lamar Jackson. Hopefully Lamar's in Baltimore for life. We're going to see.
Probably going to be Tyler Huntley.
Yeah, could be.
That could totally be it. That could totally be possible. I'm not Jets Ravens history, but my daughter's first game ever was Jets Ravens. Your Ravens, unfortunately, it was I remember the draft class because it was
2022.
Jermaine, Brees, the whole group, which was teeth kicked in, which was less great. But the emotional moment at the end, I'll remember forever. DJ.
Then the
End
airport.
of the game, and he pointed to the sky, overreacted to all of it. So, yeah.
Yes. No, definitely. That was an embarrassing game for the Jets. Not sure if we're about to experience more embarrassment. Probably, we'll see. But I mean, the record. They always say, your record, or you are what your record says you are. If there is a team that is trying to disagree with that statement, I would imagine it would be your Baltimore Ravens, who had to play without Lamar for quite some time. even with Lamar early in the season, that Bills game was something. The lead that was there and kind of disappeared. So let's start there. Like, how do you feel about this team right now? Is this a playoff team? Is this a team that you think right now can win this year's Super Bowl?
I think if they play the way they're playing now, they still have a little way to go, but it's a big improvement from what we've seen. I mean, the 1-5 start had a lot to do with really poor defense. Obviously, injuries played a huge factor in that as well. With Lamar and some others being out, they've gotten those guys back. Although, Lamar still seems banged up at this point, but still good enough to play in the game. So I guess there's that. But the team has turned it around defensively, which has been it's a sight for sore eyes, if we're being honest. This is the second year in a row under Zach Orr, who's their second-year defensive coordinator, that they've started off really slow on the defensive side of the ball and have really taken a little while to get acclimated and get ready for things and, take some time. And look, their schedule, it's been a tale of two schedules here where, Baltimore, the first 4 weeks of the season, they played Buffalo, Detroit, and Kansas City all in the first 4 weeks of the year. And, that's like multiple 13-win teams. Like it was crazy. And so again, like Baltimore's a good team, and those are games that if they're making the postseason and playing, you're gonna have to face teams like that most likely. But it's been teams out of the bye like the Vikings and the Dolphins and the Browns. But look, any given Sunday, I mean, we saw what happened to the Bills a couple weeks ago against the Dolphins. I mean, any team the Ravens almost lost to the Browns last week. So still a lot of improvement to go, particularly on the offensive line. That's a pretty key point of contention right now with how that group has been playing, but it's certainly been an improvement from what we've seen.
Is the offensive line banged up, or is it just some sort of continuity? No, the healthy. Hey, I know a little bit about a healthy unit. Still not playing well, so no worries.
Yeah.
Judgment free zone. But they're just not. And you guys just played. The Browns. Myles Garrett is kind of a beast. So I definitely wouldn't beat yourself up too much. But is that something you're looking at this week's matchup? Because we got some guys. Will McDonald had 4 sacks a couple weeks ago. Is that something that you're concerned about? Is potentially the Jets penetrating the O-line?
Yeah, for sure. McDonald and all those guys. I mean, the Jets have some guys on that D-line. And so I would say, yes, that's a big concern because, yeah, you're 100% right. Like, Myles Garrett, he's going to get he's going to dominate. Like that's not just a Ravens problem. That's a league problem when it comes to Myles Garrett. The problem is that it's been more than Myles Garrett and more games than last week that the unit has not been great. They've had a lot of issues, particularly with their guard spots. Daniel Falele and Andrew Voorhees are their 2 starters this year. They didn't do a ton to address the position in the offseason. They lost Patrick McCary, who could play all 5 positions at a pretty high level, to the Jacksonville Jaguars. And it's just been rough because they don't have a lot of depth anymore. And this is kind of the bed that they made for themselves. And they haven't tried to alter it at all. They have a couple of options on the offensive line on their bench that they could maybe bring in, but John Harbaugh said word for word they're playing pretty darn good right now, which is just not true, especially when you have guys picking up 23 PFF grades out there. So, it's been rough for them. And it's not just one guy. Like Daniel Falele has been the guy that's gotten the most flack, and certainly, it's been rough for him this season. But Roger Rosengarten, their second-year tackle, has regressed. Ronnie Stanley's had some great games. He's also had some very poor games. Tyler Linderbaum, I think, is struggling by proxy of who's around him. So it's like one guy will play well one week, like Andrew Voorhees will bounce back after having a rough game, but then someone else will play poorly. And it's just like as a unit, yes, they're staying healthy, and that's important as a 5, especially on the O-line. But also it's difficult to kind of go out there and say that you're putting the best 5 out there to protect your star quarterback, because in my opinion, you're not doing that.
Well, that is definitely a key piece of the puzzle. Of course, also having a star quarterback, which is something we don't know about, but yeah, it's definitely protecting him. Another piece of that puzzle is weapons for that QB to throw to. And I can't lie. Lamar's time as a Raven. Now it was nice because Mark Andrews, right, that same year that he was drafted, now he is, the all-time franchise leader. Shout out to Mark. But in terms of people in the wide receiver room, I'm not sure if the personnel group that they've given him these last 7 years has been great. Zay Flowers was supposed to come in, be that wide receiver one. I drafted it on my fantasy team as such, and he definitely has not produced on my fantasy team. But of course, fantasy and real football are not the same. So, in terms of Zay Flowers and some of the non-Mark Andrews, weapons out there, can you talk to us about that? How they've done? To me, if you want to call a spade, as a Flowers fantasy owner, he was a bust, all right. But as a fan of the team and what is actually going on in real NFL X's and O's, can you talk to us about how you are feeling about Zay and the rest of those guys out there?
Yeah, I think that Zay's impact is probably better real life football world wise than fantasy wise. I hear you on that. Like, Zay's someone that's been a target share dominator in this offense. He's the guy that Lamar Jackson looks to. Mark Andrews for years, yes, has been that security blanket for Lamar Jackson and still is. I mean, the chemistry that those guys have established. I mean, they came out of college together. They were same draft class in 2018. So, they have all those storylines, right? But Zay Flowers has 71 targets on the year. Mark Andrews is number 2 with 43. So, that's the guy that Lamar's been looking for in this passing offense. Even when Lamar was out, Cooper Rush, Tyler Huntley, those are the guys that the passing offense has been looking at. Is Zay Flowers 1 and Mark Andrews 2. Now, Rashad Bateman suffered an ankle injury in the Vikings game 2 weeks ago, didn't play last week against Cleveland, and he hasn't practiced on both Wednesday or Thursday. So his availability is looking to be a little in question here. I'd be a little shocked if he played, but I guess we've seen crazier things. So Bateman is a guy that probably is not going to play in this game. So then that means you have to have a guy like DeAndre Hopkins step up, who is good for maybe 1 or 2 clutch plays a game. Like, he plays a specific role for them. He's not going to be asked to go out there when everybody's healthy and play 90% of snaps. But when a guy goes down, that role is going to increase. You also have Tylan Wallace out there, who is more of a special teams guy, but when he's called upon, seems to always come up with a clutch catch. And then Tez Walker is the Ravens' second-year receiver out of North Carolina, who a lot of people are really excited about in Baltimore. And I feel like, to me, Tez is a guy that can make an impact. He is a deep threat with speed. He's shown contested catchability. That's someone that I think is really intriguing. Tight end wise, Andrews is Andrews. And then, you have Isaiah Likely, who's had a rough year compared to expectations. He suffered a foot injury in training camp, and that held him out for the first couple weeks of the season. And those things can linger on you. So it's tough for him because it's a contract year. And I think a lot of people were expecting him to kind of be even or even overtake Mark Andrews with some of his role, but it really hasn't worked out that way. Charlie Kohler is another guy who's established himself a little bit more as a pass catch threat as opposed to just a run blocker over this season. And then the running backs, Derrick Henry, Keaton Mitchell, Justice Hill, you can throw the ball to any of those guys and they can make something happen. So, Lamar's never had an A.J. Brown or a D.K. Metcalf or a Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase or any of those wide receivers. Heck, Garrett Wilson. He's never had like a wide receiver 1 on the team in terms of like the star everybody's talking about. But I think Zay's a pretty darn good receiver. And then, you have a couple of the guys filling in the cracks there, but they prioritize defense a lot more. They invest in their secondary a bunch. The guard position that we talked about, Wudi, I mean, they don't really invest there. They don't invest as much in the wide receiver. And it's interesting because they're going to have to probably pay Zay $30 million a year with the way the wide receiver market is booming. So they have a tough decision coming up in a couple years. So I'm curious to see what they do there.
All right. I don't know if you guys can hear me because I'm coming in and out from the airport. So oh, great.
So far, so good.
Well, okay. Let's keep that train rolling. I want to shout out a couple of super chats in here. Dan, the Jets fan 21, saying something you guys were just talking about earlier. So shout out.
Wow.
Crazy. It's the first time we're playing the Ravens since week 1 in 2022. Flacco started that game for us, so we've played every AFC team except them since. That's a fun fact I didn't have on the back of my bingo card there, Dan. So much appreciated here. And to think about that and all the revenge games, right? John Simpson, Tyrod Taylor, Brandon Stevens. I'm curious, as I still have airport Wi-Fi for the current moment in time. Kevin, what do you make of some of those revenge games? Tyrod's is obviously the most unique of those stories, probably. Simpson is cool because it looked like he was falling out of the league with the Raiders, and he probably owes a lot to the Ravens for giving him that chance, which has launched him to this mini deal he had, and now he's going to get a much bigger deal, I imagine, in free agency. And then Brandon Stevens, who I'm going to be honest, Kevin, a lot of Ravens fans, I don't know if that's the proper temperature, but when he left, a lot of Ravens fans lit me up, said, enjoy it, pal. And I went, oh, well, thank you very much. And at first it looked bad, but it's really turned out pretty well recently with some tackling and coverage skills. So what do you make of all the revenge game angles in this one, Kevin?
Yeah, for Tyrod and John Simpson, I don't think there's anything there for Tyrod was so long ago and he's been so many places at this point. Super Bowl champion with the Ravens, so of course, there's always love for Tyrod there. But people, honestly, the temperature within the Ravens fan base right now, I think, is they're actually more scared of Tyrod than they are of Justin Fields, because I think with Justin Fields, they kind of knew okay, we've seen what he can do this season, and that's really not a bunch. So they felt confident in that. But I think Tyrod's kind of that wild card at this point, where it's it could go not as good as Justin Fields, which I think would be a pretty low bar with some of the games he's had. But, also it could go really well. The Ravens lost to Jameis Winston last season, lost to Gardner Minshew. These are the types of quarterbacks and these are the types of games, honestly, the games that the Ravens are favored in, and there's no way they lose this, right? And then all of a sudden, they either don't take it seriously or they're not ready to play or whatever it is. And that team comes in and upsets them. So that's something to watch out for. John Simpson was a really cool story. You mentioned it. It's, the coolness of him kind of finding a home in Baltimore for that year, winning that left guard job and really running with it a couple of years ago. And he was great to the city as well, stand-up person. So he's a guy that I think a lot of people have a lot of love for. Brandon Stevens, I know in the fan base, it is a little bit different with him. Now, Stevens was they yanked him around a lot early in his career. So obviously, I know you guys know this already, but he converted from a running back in college and didn't have a lot of experience. And then the Ravens brought him in. He played corner at SMU, and then they made him a safety. And then they put him back at corner. And then they put him a safety again. And then actually they had so many injuries in training camp in 2023 at corner. They weren't going to move him back. They were going to keep him at safety, but then they moved him back to corner just because they literally had nobody else they could put there. And he had a breakout year for them. He was exceptional in 2023. There are highlight packages of him locking down Jamar Chase and not letting him get anything. He was unbelievable. And so a lot of people thought that he was on his way to that $100 million corner contract. And all right, this is the next great Ravens corner gem. And then just fell off a cliff in 2024 in terms of production. One of the things with him, and I'm sure you've seen this at times, is at least in Baltimore, he lacked the awareness to turn his head around for the ball a lot of the time. And that result, I remember, I think the first play of Jets training camp was Garrett Wilson mossing him, and his head was not turned around for that ball. And so you're just kind of okay, that's the Brandon Stevens we all know and love here in Baltimore. I mean, look, I don't have any ill will towards Brandon Stevens. I mean, it was a tough year for him in 2024. It was bad. I think everybody here in Baltimore can acknowledge that. But, after those first couple of weeks, that Pittsburgh game and a couple of all right, here's this Brandon Stevens we all know. And then he's turned it around. But I know that's something a lot of Ravens fans are watching out for this week, is that Brandon Stevens angle. I know he didn't have a ton to say about it when he was asked by the media earlier in the week. It's kind of focusing on the team and whatnot, and maybe didn't want to just give the Ravens any Baltimore material. I'm not sure. But that's the revenge game that a lot of people are looking at right now, is Brandon Stevens.
And candidly, on Brandon Stevens, there have been moments where he hasn't turned his head around, and that's a problem. But to be honest, his head has been around on a few of them. He's just dropped them. You bring up Pittsburgh. The Jets lose to Pittsburgh, but this is a play I think a lot of Jet fans forget. He had a pick six in his hands that Aaron Rodgers threw. That ends the game. The Jets win that game, and everything changes from the current AFC North standings, which I'm sure you guys would have appreciated, to a variety of other moments for him as well. A couple of things here. I see we have this account. I don't know if you have any of these Harbaugh accounts out there, but Fire Aaron Glenn account with a comment here. Appreciate that.
Wow.
And by the way, this account has existed since he was hired, so respect the shtick for Fire Aaron Glenn. For Aaron Glenn, we might have had a chance against Baltimore. I just want to thank you, Fire Aaron Glenn, for the super chat and all the raffle tickets that is yearning over there. But I want to throw it over to you, Kevin, because a constant temperature check, and maybe you guys are annoyed by this the same way Steelers fans are annoyed by the Mike Tomlin questions, is that from the outside, we hear this Harbaugh thing all the time. Oh, there's a rift. Oh, he can't get over the top. Sure, he's already won a Super Bowl, but, like more. Like, what's this pocket of time, of Harbaugh? The Ravens are really good, and they have this wonderful reputation in the league of being this really good team, but I hear Ravens fans every offseason go, I don't know. Maybe we could go in a different direction. I'm hearing Jets land when we're changing coaches every 2 years going, give me some of that. Give me the Harbaugh first world problems apparently y'all are dealing with. So give me the truth here. Is the Harbaugh thing, could he potentially be available this offseason, whether hook or crook, or is that just all BS noise from the outside?
I think it's possible, but the thing with the Ravens is they're loyal to a fault. And so, you look at John Harbaugh's resume and it's incredible. And it's tough because my stance on this is kind of like neutral middle ground. But the problem with that is there is no neutral middle ground within the fan base. It's either you love John Harbaugh, you think he's the best thing ever, or you despise this man and you wanted him gone 3 years ago. I think they should have moved on last offseason. And, I talked about that where it hasn't been getting done. And Lamar Jackson's not 24 anymore. He's going to be 29 at the end of this season. That's not old. It's definitely not old, but it's also not, you have him on his rookie contract. He's actually up for another deal this offseason. Lamar has a $70 million cap hit this next year. That was something that, is in his contract. So they have to bring that number down. It is not reasonable to build a team around any player, no matter who you are, that has a $70 million cap hit. So that's a deal that, the way that Josh Allen's deal went this past off season, Lamar's deal is going to cost more than that with the way the quarterback market is. So, you have to build your team. And this is another year. The Ravens had a break this year in terms of losing a ton of key free agents. They lost a lot in 2023, lost a lot in 2024. 2025 was like, okay, you can finally just like not have an offseason where you're losing 10 people and having to continue to like turn over your team. And that's why people thought, okay, this is the year. Like they only added in guys, like they brought in DeAndre Hopkins and Jair Alexander, and look at their draft class. But Jair's not even in ball. He's not even in the league right now. And the draft class has slowly gotten there. They have slowly come along, but it took them a little bit, and that's okay. Rookies are allowed to do that. But that's the thing with a contending team is like, and I use this example with Patrick Queen back when the Ravens drafted him in 2020, and especially with the pedigree that we know that first-round linebackers have here in Baltimore with Ray Lewis and I guess Jet legend CJ Mosley, if you want to call him that. So, you have like all that pedigree, and then with PQ, it took a couple years for
Bart
him
Scott.
to
Shout out to Bart Scott.
Yeah, Bart Scott too. That's right. So it's like getting acclimated for these rookies. For a team that's rebuilding, is like, okay, hey, that's great. You made a mistake. Like, we don't want to have that, but you can learn from that and grow from that. And in the future, like, okay, with contending teams, it's you just cost us a game. You just cost us seeding. You just cost us this. And so it's different mindset. So that's where like when Malachi Stark struggled early in the season, there was no room for that. And especially when you're 1-5, you need to grow up quick or else your season is over. And so that's what has happened here. But for Harbaugh, it's not, I think he's a good coach. Like, I think he's a good coach. The problem is that he has flaws that can they overcome them? That's the question with time management, game management. And while Lamar Jackson certainly hasn't been his best in the postseason, and we all know that, I'm not going to come on here and say that he has, because it's not true. And he'd tell you that in some of these moments, he has to be better in the postseason. The coaching staff has had a lot of reason to do with that as well. Where in Kansas City, they ran the ball 6 times with their running back when they were the best rushing offense in the league and one of the best in history. They had a couple of other moments in 2019 that was the same thing. 2024 was the first like disappointing playoff loss that you could say, okay, coaching staff, not really a lot of fault there. It was more so on the player execution. So again, like if the Ravens move on from John Harbaugh at any point, they're going to have to be sure that they can find somebody as good, if not better, than John Harbaugh to take over, because sometimes it's just like the ship runs its course. And I think that, again, like, if you lose in the wild card round and you lose in the divisional round again, I mean, is that the standard you want to set for yourself, year after year after year for a team that, and it's crazy because it more so, I don't know if you guys are NBA fans, but it follows more in the NBA where, like, we've seen a bunch of champions, not even just like teams that don't perform, but like championship, Mike Malone, Mike Budenholzer, like all these guys fired in like a year or two. Tom Thibodeau with the Knicks took him to the Eastern Conference Finals and then got fired. And that was a whole controversial thing too. So we're seeing it more often, I think. And so for guys like Tomlin and Horrible, I see McDermott in these conversations, although he's not as tenured as those two. It's like, all right, you're a good team. You have a lot of regular season success, but do you want to be defined by that regular season success, or can you take your team over the hump? I think that's where Ravens fans who want John Harbaugh fired are coming from, and the ones that don't want John Harbaugh fired are saying, well, who else are you going to bring in that is as good or better than John Harbaugh? Because if he does get fired, there would probably be a decent amount of teams lining up out that door to go get him. So that's the other argument.
Kevin, we'll finish off with a couple of quickies here. DNY for Life, appreciate another super chat coming in here. Kevin, you don't know about this, but
wow.
I've got a lot at stake in this Jets-Ravens game. Let me just put it that way. And I made a bet with a fan who called into the show and says, hey, man, if the Jets lose in New England, who they just played on Thursday Night Football, spoiler alert, they did, and they lose to the Baltimore Ravens in Baltimore, I will have to shave the majority of my beard off.
Oh, wow.
So currently the latest line I saw is the Ravens are favored by 13.5, but at some places I've seen it as much as 16.5. So it's aggressive. Kevin, you seem like a straight shooter. I've picked up that vibe from you in this conversation and many conversations we've had before. What are our chances, and what are the chances of me having this beard for Christmas for my two beautiful children at home?
Well, I'll tell you this. I think that there is a chance the Jets win this game, if anything but the Ravens fall victim to trap games every year, and they have not done so far this season. That's the path to the Jets winning this game. And I say this all the time. The way that the Jets or any team that's not favored, or it looks like the Ravens are this huge big-time favorite, you just have to make this game as sloppy as possible. As sloppy as possible. That's exactly what Cleveland did. And let me tell you, if they had even Justin Fields, they would have won that game on Sunday because of how that. And I know the Jets don't have Myles Garrett on their roster, which, again, Thanksgiving is coming up. I'm thankful the Ravens are done with Myles Garrett this season. But that's how you beat a Ravens team is them making mistakes and you capitalizing on them. The Ravens made a lot of mistakes in that game against Cleveland, but Cleveland could not capitalize on them the way that they needed to. And they just let Baltimore hang around. And then eventually they broke through because, well, it's Lamar Jackson and it's Browns. So that's how that ended up going. So, if Tyrod Taylor can come in there, and again, like, there's no Garrett Wilson in this game, can young receivers step up for the Jets? A.D. Mitchell, who I know had a couple of tough drops last week, or, John Mechie, who, scored a touchdown. It's like, but this is also a trial period for these guys. Like, it's looking ahead to who can be on your roster, who can be a part of your group next year. So maybe it's Garrett Wilson, one of A.D. Mitchell and John Mechie, and then maybe you go out there and get another receiver you can put as a number 2 next to Garrett Wilson, and then maybe Mason Taylor takes a leap. Like, these are all things for the Jets where there are positives. Now, I know for you, Paul, it might not be as positive with the beard situation if something bad happens here, but still, I think that for the Ravens, the other thing that you can do if you don't want to make the Ravens offense score or have that possibility, and keep them off the field. That's the other big key for the Jets in this game, in my opinion, if you want a way to stop Lamar Jackson. Not putting pressure on him, obviously. He's great against the blitz, but the problem is that with that offensive line he's being protected by, there's just a lot of plays where he's thrown out there to the wolves, it seems, within like a half a second, 1 second, 1.5 seconds, all of a sudden, you look at it and he's running for his life and I've even seen him at times get happy feet, in the pocket, which is something you do not want. I mean, that's what CJ Stroud gets in Houston every single season with the offensive line they put out there around him. You do not want that with your star quarterback. And Lamar does a good job of combating it and playing for the next play. But at the same time, that's how you slop this game up. It's you force punts, very low scoring game, but we all know there's a possibility that this offense comes out firing and Derrick Henry and whatnot and starts putting up points. And then can that Jets offense keep up with that Ravens offense? That's probably not going to happen because you need touchdowns to beat the Ravens. So that's what the goal here is. So I think Tyrod Taylor magic, just like I mentioned it with the Jameis Winston magic and the Gardner Minshew magic that I've seen in the past couple of seasons, certainly possible. Now, would I pick the Jets to win this game? Probably not. Would I pick them to cover? I'm not so sure. But even still, there's still a possibility for either. So not all hope is lost for you. Not all hope is lost. I'll say that.
Okay, I'll inform my fiance of that. Kevin, we'll have a couple more for you here on the program. So Lamar Jackson, I'm sort of curious about. Is there any way that he misses this game or is compromised? Because I know there was a little bit of concern with the injury stuff, and let me make sure I get them all right. Ankle, knee, and hamstring at different points of the season, and so if he does play so I guess this is more so if he does play. If he does play, how compromised is Lamar? Is he not running as much as he did before? Is it fearfulness of, to your point, some of the offensive line stuff? Or is when Lamar's out there, he's full go, he's 100%? Like, what's sort of the conversation there?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because, with Lamar, no one at this point in the season is 100%. But I think that with him right now, I mean, he's clearly not 100% at this point. And, like I said, no player is, but you can tell that, something's off with him, and not to the point where like, oh, he's, this horrible, terrible quarterback when he's injured. I mean, he's still good, but he had a tough game against Cleveland last week and he isn't running as much. And it's not that he's not running at all, but we also, that explosiveness, I think people have noticed, is not fully there. And, when you deal with multiple leg injuries throughout a season and, you don't really have a break. Baltimore also is playing 2 games in 4 days. They have the Jets obviously on Sunday, but then they'll play the Bengals on Thanksgiving night. So, you want to be cautious and careful with everything there. So like, you could be looking like, okay, Bengals AFC North game, got to get that game to win. And then wait, but you still got to, still got the Jets on Sunday. So, I know people are saying, oh, I've seen Ravens fans say, rest Lamar. I don't, if Lamar's healthy enough to play, he will play. I mean, he practiced on Thursday, so should be good to go in this one. But again, I worry about him with that offensive line because, taking hits from, he's taken some of the hardest hits in his career this season. Ed Oliver in week 1, Dallas Turner, which was a textbook roughing the passer call. But, then he's just getting hit by Myles Garrett over and over and over again. I know that doesn't feel good. So, he's getting these rest days. Not sure if that's going to be a theme throughout the rest of the season with kind of managing the leg. But, it's certainly been a little different for Lamar, especially with the injuries. And, it's natural. People get banged up. It's football. But, Lamar can sit back there, throw from the pocket. There's no worries about that. But we know he's at his absolute best when that arm and the legs are working together.
Kevin, I'll tell you this. One of the credits I give to Lamar Jackson, it just must just be an innate gift. You either have it or you don't. That I've seen throughout Lamar Jackson's career is, and tell me if I'm wrong from your Ravens perspective of seeing it every game, he just seems to normally avoid the biggest hit. As 2 guys are about to collide and destroy his soul, he just moves just in the right way where he avoids just taking it on the chin. And he's just been sort of fluid in that way. So I'm curious if you agree with that. And also, we have another super chat coming in. They've been raining from the high heavens today. Appreciate it. Kevin, will the Week 18 Baltimore-Pittsburgh game be for the AFC North title?
All right. So for the AFC North title, I'm going to say yes. Now, it's tough because if the Ravens win that first Pittsburgh game, I think no. But if the Pittsburgh Steelers win that game, then I'll say yes. Baltimore has a pretty, I don't want to say easy schedule, but it's at least a lot lighter than we saw earlier in the season for them. They still have to play like the Patriots and the Packers and obviously the Steelers twice. But, that Steelers defense just hasn't looked right this year for a while. And they brought in guys, Kyle Duggar's playing well for them. And Asante Samuel Jr. is going to help out that corner room. I think Juan Thornhill was an addition by subtraction. I know he was playing badly out there. So I think it'll be better. But again, it's like, okay, you have TJ Watt. and the Ravens offensive line doesn't want to block TJ Watt. Like you just don't want to do it. So I think that it will be, and again, like the NFL needs a storyline. If anything, the NFL might say, "All right, hey, let's go make this happen." I mean, we saw it with Minnesota and Detroit last year. The Sunday night for the division storylines could happen again this year. So I think that Baltimore, they've only played 2 AFC North games. They actually have not played Cincinnati or Pittsburgh once while playing Cleveland twice. So kind of a weird schedule quirk there, but 4 of their games coming up here are going to be these AFC North divisional matchups. And while, I'm not as worried about Cincinnati, even with Joe Burrow, as others, because I've been on that defense is horrible and terrible. And there's no, even if the Bengals put up 40, like we saw the Bears do, they'll opposing you put up 50 on you. So I think that the Ravens and Steelers week 18, I'm going to say, yes, that's the game that determines the AFC North.
Well, we know a big part of that, like we talked about earlier, was the Ravens defense coming back to life, and getting that jolt that they needed. But looking at this game against the Jets, and I know, like you said, Garrett, we don't got Garrett, but we still got my guy Breece Hall, right? You name some other guys, AD Mitchell, we'll see. I mean, he was creating separation. It's just that his hands were also separating from the football when he tried to make the catch. It was just a little too much separation right there. But what would you see would be the path, the scouting report? What is the path to beating this Ravens defense that is back to life? Is it in that run game? Pound the ball, give Breece, 30 touches and, try to see what he can do, against the front seven? Or is it, hoping that, just throw some, stick them on, AD Mitchell's gloves or something and trying to attack the secondary? What's the scouting report for the Jets this Sunday?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, defensively for Baltimore, a lot of their success recently has been they've just decided they're going to be the aggressor. They haven't been able to rush 4 effectively. They haven't been able to get pressure without blitzing, and it's gotten better over the last couple of weeks, but what have they done? Well, they've decided to just be a crazy aggressive blitzing team where they were like 30th in the NFL in blitz rate for the majority of the early part of the season. And, that number's been in the top 10 or around the top 10 for a little while now. They've just completely shifted on that. Identifying Kyle Hamilton is going to be the number 1 key, though. He's the Swiss Army knife of this defense. He also returned to practice on Thursday, and he's going to be a guy that the Jets need to have an eye on because he can play up the line. He's going to play all around the field. And that's a guy that if you don't have your eye on him, he's going to come and make a play. He had 3 first-half sacks against the Colts a couple of years ago, interception guy, turnover, can come up and stop the run. So he's the do-it-all player for this defense. I think using Breece Hall is an effective way to go. I mean, the Ravens defense has been improving. And so the stats that they have now are not as indicative of who they were earlier in the season. Like their run defense is still 22nd in the league, but they've been a lot better there recently. But, Breece is a really talented running back. I mean, look, I have dynasty shares of Breece. I love Breece. So that's a guy that I think the Jets should be using more, but Isaiah Davis gets a lot of carries, and I'm like, okay, I guess you want to do that. But, and also the passing game, that's an area I think that the Jets should use Breece Hall in more, not just for my fantasy points, but the fact that he's a really good receiver out of the backfield. So, if you want to be able to beat this Ravens defense and they're blitzing a lot, one of the things that you can do is throw a screen to Breece Hall or one of those young receivers because there's so many guys up the field already that one of the best ways to combat the blitz is the short passing game, which by proxy is extension of the run game. So there are a lot of different ways still. I mean, the Ravens, they're not a defense that you're going to be able to beat deep. They like to play single high. They run the 2 safety stuff as well, where they're not those 60-yard touchdown passes. They don't really come all that often against that Ravens defense. What they do is they play that bend, don't break style. So they will give you that short and intermediate stuff over the middle of the field. They'll let you kind of drive down the field a little bit at times, but their goal essentially is to force you into a kick on every possession, a punt or a field goal, because they know that with a Lamar Jackson-led offense, that's not going to be enough to beat them. So you have to score touchdowns against this team. And Baltimore has become, again, the stats have been skewing in their favor for a while now, but they're a very good conversion team on defense. They're now a top 10 third down defense in the league. They're in the top half of the league in red zone defense as well. So it's a big shift from what we saw. Now, on the opposite side, the Ravens are a horrendous red zone team on offense. So, that's something that the Jets defense maybe could take advantage of. So could just come down to who's better in the red zone, honestly, who scores more touchdowns. And, if you want to win a football game, scoring touchdowns is a good way to go.
I like that level of analysis. That's why we bring Kevin on this Gash Guard show, baby. And Kyle Hamilton from the University of
Notre Dame. Yeah,
there you go, baby. Way to bring that full circle, Kevin.
Yeah.
You're a pro's pro. We missed this super chat on my morning show, so I want to bring this back up because what the hell? Notre Dame is ass. Go Canes. Backwoods aren't cool. I mean, what a inappropriate way to send us off here. But I saw this earlier from Backwoods aren't cool. We had the Notre Dame Miami game earlier this season. Miami sort of fallen off a cliff, but hey, that's neither here nor there. Backwoods aren't cool. I appreciate that super chat. Nonetheless, Kevin, it's been a lot of fun. Thank you for working through my airport issues happening here. Shout out to the man, the myth, the legend, Wudi, who's the greatest host of all time. So doing it like a pro. So that was awesome. And Kevin, you know what? I hope the next time we chat, I've got hair on my face. That's what I'm hoping for. Some people just root for this or that, but that's it for my family. Santa, Christmas is coming up. I normally play Santa, but instead I'm going to play one of the weird hairless faced elves in the corner potentially if this goes a different way. So Kevin, God bless. Thanks for joining us here on the program.
Oh, always appreciate you having me, guys. Thanks for the opportunity to talk some football. It was a blast.
Okay.
Absolutely. The pleasure is ours. A+ analysis. I will be looking at the red zone. I will not be looking at trimmers, though. You guys trying to drag me into Boy Green's bet. Come on now. You guys got to chill. My beard said this isn't even bad. Oh, my God. You guys in the comments, y'all play too much. But Kevin, definitely appreciate your time. I'm glad. I'm so jealous hearing you talk about how Brees is on your fantasy team and I'm out here stuck with Zay Flowers. So it's not here nor there. I usually end this with good luck to your football team. Sometimes I mean it, sometimes I don't. This time I actually mean it. I mean it. Good luck to your football team. I know you guys, because you guys got some big plans ahead, so if we help you get there, so be it. But of course, Aaron Glenn has some plans of his own, and he actually revealed them on time this time. Tyrod's going to be playing, and we're going to see if the Jets can play the spoiler.
Yeah, I know. Good luck to you guys too. Although I know that I'm sure some fans just kind of want them to lose for the draft pick. So maybe good luck whether you want the draft pick or you want the win. Either way, good luck to you.
Way to shoot straight. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. A couple hundred people in the room, and I know they've been in throughout the program. Again, another shout-out to Wudi for hosting this puppy. We'll see you guys next time. And, boarding. Oh, son of a – I got to make sure I catch this gosh darn plane. Thanks, everybody. We'll see.